was an All-American tennis player at the University of South Carolina. He was a Richland County Council person and is currently a state representative. And he is a friend of USTA South Carolina. We met Seth a few years back in your law offices through Brian Reeves, who's director of tennis at Rockbridge and No Sex. We were struggling with there are people who have worked very hard in Richland County and the City of Columbia over the years, volunteers, Jerry Odom included, Nan Smith, many people in this area who've worked hard to try to get courts refurbished and Park Lane in particular. We had a strategy, and that strategy was completely blown up when we went to meet with Seth, and he said, don't do that, do this instead. And he spent a few minutes with a group of us. Jerry was there, Nan was there, Brian was there. We walked down there and went, well, God, too bad we didn't come over here a couple of years ago. But the point is, we didn't know what we didn't know. And he gave us a way out to a better strategy, and so we thank you. And Jerry will talk a little bit more about where the money, talk about what they did there later, but thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course. Tennis has been a big part of who I am in my life, even when I ran for public office. Growing up from a very young age, my dream was to be a professional tennis player. And you also learn a lot about yourself in tennis. I share all that to say that tennis is an amazing sport. In tennis, you gotta finish it. And that can be the toughest thing to do, to have the belief to finish someone when the pressure's on the line and you're trying to beat somebody that you're not sure you can beat, or you let your mind start to wonder. And then, we've all been there. I've got some heartbreaking losses that I can prefer to just stay comfortable. That helps me. If any of you are struggling with that. A lot of wins. But, when I was asked to come and speak to y'all, I wanted to do so because, like I said, tennis is a big part of who I am. And I love the sport. I've also been fortunate enough to serve in local government. I was on Richland County Council for 8 years. And I served in the state legislature. I represent downtown Columbia, which is like the campus of USC, 5 Points, so there's all the neighborhoods around there. I live in Shannon. So, this organization came to me a while back and was seeking my input and advice on certain things, and I guess I gave them some good advice, and it worked out, so I'm glad for that. But I was really just coming to take any questions you have. I mean, the one thing I'll tell you is people don't realize how many, it's hard to go around Columbia and find an open tennis court because there's so many people that play tennis. That means that there are a lot of constituents of elected officials that play tennis. And there are strength in numbers. And the biggest thing that I would tell you, I can tell you when I serve on county council, if the library, for example, and I was always hugely supportive of the library, but if the library wanted something, they have the Friends of the Richland Library. And you would open your county council email, boom, they had it. They had those more emails than you can count. This is what the library needs. And so what I'm saying is, I think it would behoove your organization to start building that list by some means. And it needs to not only be voters, people who live in this area, but then break it down to who's a constituent of whom. And there was times when you might go, you supported something for Adventure, and these are clever things, and these are good organizations, but I'm just giving you an insight on what they do. If you supported something, they would have, when an elementary school came to Adventure to take part in something that you had voted on approving, you might get a nice board that was signed by this elementary school that you represent, which means their parents all live in your district, and it says, thank you, Councilman Rose, and there was all these kids' signatures, where they would invite you to take a picture with all the kids, or whatever it may be. And so what I'm trying to say is, because so many people enjoy tennis and use tennis around this county and state, we need to build that list like the Friends of the Library. And when there is a need for advocacy, you have a call to action and say, here are the email addresses. And I don't even know where we just get a massive amount of emails going. And that will get elected officials' attention. And that is kind of something that I noticed. These were obviously things that I supported, but I noticed how they maneuvered to help get their point across on what needs to be done and what needs to be funded. And so that's one of the biggest things that I would, say to look into. And additionally, if you're having an event in someone's district, if there's a tournament or something, there's going to be a banquet on Friday night, the tournament starts on Saturday, and invite the home councilman for the area who maybe supported something, or have them come out and recognize them and say, somebody that has been supportive of the cause, or we need to be supportive of the cause, so they can see firsthand what's going on, how many people this is impacting. Additionally, tennis can bring in a lot of hospitality tax. And on our South Carolina state law, what is eligible for age tax funds? So in local government, you have two pots of funds. You have the general fund, which is where property taxes come from. That goes to law enforcement and all the other stuff. Then you have things that go on your bill when you go out to eat or stay at a hotel, wherever it may be. It has hospitality, and that goes into hospitality tax. If you're inside the city limits, I'm going to use Richland County as an example. If you're inside the city limits of Columbia, those revenues go to Columbia City. So city council has an H tax pot. If you're outside the city limits, you go to Richland County Council or Richland County government's H tax pot. And that's where you see a lot of wasteful spending, is through the H tax, because state law says you can't fund fire, police, pave a road, or anything like that with H tax. H tax must go towards bringing in more tourism. I hear that to say that's what H tax needs to go to. So when things are getting tight on the general fund, they have all these millions of dollars sitting in H tax, and it's like, oh, what are we gonna do? Let's build a water park. Let's, and that's where you see a lot of things like, let's build a water park. And so, but H tax theoretically could go to building tennis courts. It could go to helping fund or sponsor. Richland County government is sponsoring the state tennis championships in Richland County, because guess what? Years past, we can look at the numbers and tell we're going to have 500 participants, and X amount are coming from out of state. They're going to have to stay in a hotel. They're going to eat dinner. They're going to gas up. Here's the economic impact. Do we know the economic impacts of these things? Who does that? What is the economic impact of a state tennis championship coming to your town? And so we have those figures. That's where you go and you say, hey, we want a sponsorship. We want to put county council's banner. I can tell you, in my time with the local government, I never once got an email or a call saying, hey, does Richland County want a sponsorship for a tennis tournament at such and such? Okay, we're battling with Greenwood. We're battling with Charleston or Hilton Head. Do y'all, I tell you what, is what Hilton Head's offering, can y'all match that? Or not match it, but can you beat it? Because if you beat it, you give another 20,000, hypothetically, you're going to have all these hotel rooms sold out. Because people have to come here. And they have to come here because that's where the tournament is. When I grew up in South Florida, you'd go to Lakeland. You'd go wherever the tournament was because you had to play in it. So there's not a question, well, I don't like that hotel, or I feel like the beach. It's like, this is where the tournament is. We have to go. And so I would say organizing to go after this, making a competitive environment, having the numbers to back it up, but approaching your local governments. Local government, I'm telling you, they have funds in H tax. It's sitting burning a hole in their pockets. You're going after hospitality tax, and this is what it's supposed to be used for, to generate revenues. And so the other thing I'd say is there's a lot of different landmines. I think I shared this with you all, and this isn't any secret, but like Richland County, when I was on county council, I represented the city district, so I had a unique take. I was like, if the city does well, we're all doing well. But there were council people who didn't represent any sliver of the city. So they would always get upset because county council would give $1 million a year to Columbia Museum of Art, $500,000 to Adventure a year, all these things inside the city council would never give to anything outside the city limits. And we all, of course, my position is representing this area, and we have a strong core, strong city. It helps everyone. County residents can also use these facilities, etc. But there is some political headbutting going on there. And so that's something to be aware of, when you come before, but and the other side of that is too, is that you can play, a lot of times, if you go in front of the county council, they say, well, what's the city get? And the city will say, what's the county get? And so if you have a relationship or a way to get one, that you can use that and leverage that to get a match from the other interests. But when I think about tennis, and again, this is a major economic driver. You're gassing up, you're staying in a hotel. But that all encompasses, not only is this hospitality, but it's also a healthy way of living, promoting exercise and things of that nature. But I really just wanted to kind of say that and say, look, there's strength in numbers. You guys need to ascertain when people are signing up for these tournaments. Get an email address. Okay, are you okay when it comes to what tennis player is going to be asked? Could we count on you if we have advocacy for tennis efforts around this state? If there's tennis courts that have asbestos in them, can we count on you to maybe send an email or whatever it may be? And anyone can do that. It's the same reason that I don't really play tennis anymore, but when a tennis group asks me, I love the sport, I love what you guys are doing, and stand for it, and it's a big part of who I am, that I want to come speak to you. But build the database. Remember, there are hospitality tax funds that can't go to other endeavors. It goes to tourism. Y'all are major tourism. And to the extent that you can be competitive and play off each other. Hilton Head, I'm just throwing this out there. I don't know what the numbers are. I'm just saying Hilton Head expects to have this tournament. Well, guess what? You can have it, but maybe there's going to be a bid process. Maybe we're going to see if Columbia, or Richland County, or Lexington, or whoever, Casey, whoever, we're going to see whoever wants to give more than Hilton Head gives. Because guess what? Y'all are the show. You say where the tournament is, and they have to come. In what industry is that the case?
If someone's terrified about contacting an elected official, what's the best? These friends of I know what you're talking about. Just keep sending the same message over and over and over again. They're finally going to go, enough already. Okay, we'll listen to you.
It's just an email.
Yeah.
If they are that scared, maybe one of us can offer to press the send button for them. I got this. I got this. Look away. Only hurt for a minute. But I think it's just an email. Like obviously, and if somebody's really like, hey, I don't care, then yeah, send an email, make a call. But if they're afraid, I'll say, look, it's just an email. You don't feel comfortable, But if you do care, and it's not just a database, because I will say it's not the same when you're getting emails from someone. You represent downtown Columbia, you get an email from Greenville. Like we need constituents, we need to narrow that list down. We'll go all of it. It needs to be like, hey, I know so-and-so. I'm going to call them.
And we've actually put together by district, by town, by district, and targeted our own tennis people in this room and everywhere else with those lists, so that they don't even have to do that work themselves.
And kudos to the city of Columbia, because Richland County doesn't make a list. So we've had a lot of excess funds. County council doesn't have a list to say, here's our priorities. But the city council did, and they have the biggest power of making that list is you now have the city's lobbyists that are pushing. We need this, and it's also an endorsement from city council saying this is what we want funded. I can give you an example. I represent Divine Street. Divine Street has people parking up on the sidewalks. I was able, and this is not a glamorous process, guys, get money, but I'm not on Ways and Means, but I begged sufficiently to get $1.5 million for Divine Street. It's going to be a resurfacing, they're going to repave the lines, I'm going to try to get more money to get people from parking up on the sidewalks, I'm going to try to get more money to get some bells and whistles on it. But I share that because it's not a glamorous process, it's really like, hey, I'm just begging and begging. And and begging, and finally, you know, they're like, Seth, we got it, Divine Street, Jesus, don't leave us alone. And so, one of the pushbacks that I had on Divine Street was it wasn't on the city's list. Because some people are like, well, wait, why isn't that on the list? Does the city, in fact, want this? And we run into that with, for example, DOT. A lot of people are trying to get money for road projects, and the DOT's like, well, I mean, this isn't really a project that we are endorsing for certain reasons. You see what I'm saying? Like, this guy wants a roundabout, but we don't think a roundabout works here, but he's putting in the budget, $750,000 for a roundabout. You see how that's a problem. So they've learned to be like, let's make sure that this is something the DOT wants. With the Divine Street, I already had that it's already been looked at, it was needed, 1.5 was the number to resurface. So I was able to direct them to the right people, particularly when the governor is looking at the EMR, does this thing now where he has a form you submit, and he either vetoes it or he doesn't. And so, particularly his executive staff wanted to know who I talked to as a DOT, and I put them in touch. They know about this, they can use these funds, this is a project they want to implement. So I share all that to say, just because you're on the list, you still need to have people pushing for it, but making the list helps because you have the lobbyists pushing, right? You get a team saying this is what we want. To get an earmark sponsor, any member of the legislature has to sponsor it and say what it's for in the end. Not serving on Ways and Means, I have to pick and choose my spots because I can't go around and beg for 10 things. But I will say the earmark process has been very beneficial. I've been able to get some really good things funded through it. Now, are there people out there that are sponsoring something that's not maybe as worthwhile, of course, but I've been able to get some really worthwhile things. And if something is not going through the earmark, is going through, you know, if you put something up on the list, I mean, people might vote against me just because of my political affiliation, or they think that money should go to them, or it just be, but we're getting worthwhile projects funded through that. And so, it's not a glamorous process, and it's not just, hey, I'm on this list, so I'm funded. It's like that. There still needs to be a push, and there has to be a lot of hard work. Like I started in January begging for the money for development, and every time I saw them, but it helps if you have a worthwhile project. City of Columbia Tennis Center, Columbia Tennis Center. I mean, geez, that tennis center. The tennis club hasn't changed a bit since it was built. My first day on campus, we were getting our tennis courts resurfaced at USC, and so we went to the tennis center. It was the first place I ever hit a tennis ball. And the pro shop looked exactly the same. Like, this is the water fountain. Like, big water fountain. But, you know, the other side of this too, guys, is like, one of the pushbacks you get on that stuff is like, this is a city park. And there's exceptions, you pointed one out. But, I mean, there is a role for city government to play in this. And one of the things that you're encountered with when you're going and pushing for, hey, we need a new pro shop at a city park, well, the question becomes, what's the city putting in? You see what I'm saying? If this is so important to the city, what are they putting in? You see what I'm saying? And so it's helpful to be able to say, here is the estimated cost, and the city has half. You know, that's helpful, rather than be like, here's the estimated cost, and the city says they're not going to do anything. But this is important to them. Because they seem to find money, and they can find money if it's something they want to do. And so, but that goes back to the advocacy. I mean, you can maybe get that done strictly with city council if you start, because on city council there's 7 people. You need 4 votes, and 3 are at large. The mayor's elected by everybody. You have an at-large council person, woman. You have right now a current at-large city councilman. That's 3 that will be constituents of this area. And then you have the councilman for the area. That's 4 votes right there. So who is sending out these mass emails about the need, when this was built, and having their constituents contact them? Who is having people walk up to them at a neighborhood meeting and say, we need this, and give them the data. How much money do we need? What are we trying to build? Why is it needed? Because usually I'm CC'd on those emails, and I haven't seen one. But you have to apply pressure. Where's the pressure point with voters? This is important to us. It's our time. We're due. And so that goes back, don't just focus on the year. I feel like the state government given to a city park is gravy. But really, city council needs to take the lead on this. If nothing else, to split it and help our efforts in the state.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just like hypothetical from your experience at a county council level. Say you're in an area such as Myrtle Beach with a high hospitality rate overall, and we don't have a proper tennis complex within an hour and a half of us, and we're trying to get something developed down there. What would you want to see as a council member in our proposal that is developing this possible complex? What do we need to present to you besides the 50 acres of unused land that's sitting there waiting for something to happen?
I would present that county, in our hypothetical, I would want the neighbors, the community, the neighborhoods around to tell me they want this.
Okay.
Because believe it or not, when you propose developing undeveloped land, people who may have moved out there because they like seeing deer, they like the lack of traffic, they like this, they like that, are now afraid. Is this guy opening the door, now we're gonna have homes? Is that the next thing? Are they trying to take tennis courts and then they're gonna put up 1,000 homes, and then they're gonna do this, and then they're gonna build roads, and now I can't get home from work, and this nightmare scenario starts building in people's heads. So what does the community say about this? Do they want this? I think we also talk about the economic impact. I wonder if, are there any colleges or anything like that in the area?
Coastal Carolina.
It's coastal, they have tennis courts, right? Coastal.
That's Conway.
Yeah.
That's not the city.
Well, I mean, I was just thinking, like, I would want to address those concerns, those fears. Is this leading to unfettered development, and now this is the first rung, and now we're done for it? Is the zoning already there for it? Or are you asking for a variance? And if you're asking for a variance, the easiest way to lose that is if the community says they don't want it. So the first step I would do is go to the surrounding neighborhoods, talk to their neighborhood associations, tell them what you're trying to do, show them renderings, explain to them why this would be important, why this could help their area potentially, and maybe raise their property values. Ask what they would like to see in it. Okay, could these communities have public access to the courts? Is there going to be a pool or something? I don't know. I'm just a way that they have buy-in and want this. It helps your property value if we do X. Are y'all willing to write a letter saying you support this on the neighborhood letterhead? But I would start there, because the first thing he or she may not say it, but they're wondering if this is going to become a real mess. But understand, I mean, it's impossible to me. You can't get 100%, guys. You can't. I mean, if you're in the 90s, you're not going to get 100%. You know, but if you can at least get a vote, there should be a democratic process in the neighborhood where you vote on this. The neighborhood voted to endorse this, but I hope I would start with the neighborhoods, get buy-in there, because that's going to be huge when you're sitting with that council person and he knows his community wants this, and is there carrots you can offer them? Is it free play? Maybe they don't want to hear tennis at night, so there's not going to be any lights. So after dark, you don't have to worry about it. I'm just hypothetically speaking.
Thank you
All right,
so
guys.
much. Thank you.